You ever trusted someone so completely you couldn't imagine them turning on you? For me, that person was my sister. Same house, same bedtime stories, same birthday parties, just days apart. I thought we were inseparable. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. She didn't just stab me in the back, she torched my entire life just to be the golden child. And now, she's crying on my doorstep asking for forgiveness. But let me back up. I grew up in Austin, Texas. Our house was small, loud, and always filled with comparisons. Why can't you be more like Isla? Look at her grades. Look at her smile. It didn't matter what I did. I was always the runner-up in my own life. But I kept going. I studied harder, stayed quiet, did the right things. I figured one day they'd see me. Instead, I got blindsided. It started with a phone call from my mom. She was hysterical, screaming, crying. How could you do this to us? I had no idea what she meant. Then I got home and saw it. My dad, pacing with a pregnancy test in his hand. My sister sobbing on the couch. I hadn't even been sexually active. And yet there it was, a perfectly orchestrated lie. Isla had planted the test, faked texts, even used a burner account to send messages as if from my boyfriend. She knew exactly what strings to pull to make me look like the villain. And it worked. Within hours, I was kicked out, alone, with nowhere to go. She got the sympathy, she got the attention, and for 2 years, I vanished. Figuratively and literally. No one wanted to hear my side. No one even asked. Now she wants to talk. Says she's changed. Says she's sorry. But when someone lights a match to your life, can you ever really trust them again? And that's the question I want to ask you. What would you do? Would you forgive someone who burned your world down just to shine a little brighter? Stick around. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the fire you walk through to reclaim your voice. Growing up with Isla wasn't always like this. There were good moments, backyard forts, flashlight tag, late-night popcorn, and Disney marathons. But looking back, those moments were band-aids on a wound we didn't know we had. Our parents never hit us, never yelled, but they did something worse. They measured us, every single day. It was never enough to just be happy. We had to be better. Isla got a B+. Why'd you only get a B? You should smile more like Isla. Why can't you be more social like your sister? At first, I brushed it off. Every family's got their quirks, right? But it never stopped. The compliments Isla got were trophies. The silence I received? That was punishment. We learned quickly. Approval had a price, and the currency? Outshining each other. Isla played the role well. Perfect hair, perfect photos, perfect lies. She knew how to charm a room, how to cry on cue, how to twist a truth just enough to make you doubt yourself. I didn't. I wasn't built for manipulation. I was built for logic. I'd overanalyze everything while she played the game like it was second nature. And that game? It got dark fast. I remember in 9th grade, I got my first A+ in bio. I was thrilled. Finally beat Ela at something. The next day, she told our parents I'd cheated. Just casually, over dinner. Like it was no big deal. My mom didn't even ask for proof. Just looked at me with disappointment and moved on. That was the moment I stopped celebrating wins. Because every win came with a cost. And that cost was trust. Over time, the rivalry stopped being something they pushed on us. It became real. We were no longer sisters, we were competitors. In the same house, under the same roof, but in completely different worlds. And I guess I should have seen it coming. The fake pregnancy, the setup, the exile. Isla had been rehearsing for years. I just didn't realize I was part of her script. It started with a scream. Not mine. Dad's. I was brushing my teeth halfway out the bathroom when I heard him yell my name like I'd just crashed a car. He was in the kitchen gripping a plastic stick like it was a crime scene weapon. A pregnancy test. Positive. I froze. I hadn't been with anyone. Not even close. I didn't party, didn't sneak around. Hell, I still blushed at shirtless movie scenes. But there he was. Face red, veins showing, saying I'd shamed the family. That I'd brought filth into his house. I stammered, trying to speak, but Mom cut me off. Save it. Isla told us everything. Everything? That's when the pieces clicked. Isla. She must have planted it. But why? Because I was finally doing well? Because Tyler, the guy who'd always been friendly to both of us, asked me out, not her? I tried to defend myself, swore it was fake, asked for a test. proof, anything. They weren't listening. By sundown, my suitcase was by the door. My phone taken, credit cards disabled. Mom gave me $60 in cash and told me to find a couch to crash on. And Hila? She stood behind them, arms folded, crocodile tears threatening to fall. She whispered, "I wish you'd just been honest." Like I was the one faking it. Like I'd betrayed her. That night, I wandered through 3 bus stops and 1 all-night diner before settling at a 24-hour park near downtown Plano. My hoodie barely kept the cold out, and my hands shook. Not from weather, but from the absolute disbelief. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. And worst of all, I didn't even know why this was happening. I kept replaying it in my head. How a test I didn't take and a lie I didn't tell had just erased 18 years of being the quiet, responsible one. And somewhere, not far away, Hila was probably sleeping soundly. In my room, in my bed. But something inside me broke that night. And that was the last time I let anyone write my story for me. I barely slept that night. The metal bench under me was cold, and the street lamp above buzzed like it was taunting me. Around 3 a.m., I opened my backpack and pulled out the only thing I had left that made sense. My journal. It was bent, worn, full of old sketches and scribbles from my sophomore year. I flipped through pages, desperate to find some version of me that hadn't been torn apart yet. That's when I saw it. A Polaroid. Me and Isla, freshman year. Laughing, arms locked in front of our favorite boba shop. I stared at that photo for a long time. That girl beside me? That wasn't someone capable of destroying my life, right? But memory has a funny way of reshaping itself. Suddenly, things I brushed off made sense. The day she accidentally deleted my essay the night before a scholarship deadline. The time she told Tyler I wasn't ready for relationships behind my back. The way she always needed to borrow my favorite clothes before a party, only to return them stained or ripped. At the time, I called it sisterhood. Now, I saw it for what it was. Sabotage. And here's the worst part. It worked. My parents believed her because she was louder, more emotional. She cried on cue while I just stood there, frozen, trying to make logic speak louder than performance. That morning, a woman in scrubs, probably a nurse finishing a night shift, gave me a protein bar and a bottle of water. I muttered thanks and asked her the time. 7:12 a.m. School would be starting soon. Isla would be there, in my seat, with my life. I had 2 options. Disappear like they wanted, or fight back. That's when I knew. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to unravel every lie, expose every move, and make sure no one ever confused silence with guilt again. Because being betrayed by a stranger hurts. But being betrayed by someone who knows all your secrets? That shatters something deeper. And now, it was time for her to learn just how dangerous the quiet one can be. Just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, life handed me a small, unexpected mercy. Mrs. Kravitz. She was my neighbor back in Plano. Widowed, retired, always wore the same pink gardening gloves and smelled faintly of cinnamon and menthol. As a kid, I used to mow her lawn for extra cash. She'd pay me in lemonade and unsolicited life advice. We hadn't spoken much since I turned 16, but that morning, after 2 sleepless nights, something inside me just pulled me toward her house. I walked 3 miles, blisters forming under cheap sneakers, until I reached her porch. I didn't even ring the bell. I just sat there. Exhausted. Broken. Ashamed. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I was about to leave when the door creaked open. There she stood. Bathrobe, curlers, coffee mug in hand. She stared at me for a long second. No judgment. Just recognition. "You hungry?" she asked. "Oh, I tea." I nodded, and that was it. No questions, no dramatics. She brought me inside, made eggs and toast, then pointed me to the guest room and said, "Sleep. We'll talk when your soul's less scrambled." I didn't cry until I was under her quilt. And when the tears came, they came hard. Because for the first time in days, I felt safe. Like someone saw me as a human, not a villain. Later that afternoon, we sat on her porch swing. I told her everything. The fake pregnancy test, Isla's manipulation, Tyler ghosting, my parents kicking me out without a second thought. She didn't flinch. She just said, "Honey, sometimes the people who claim to love you the loudest are the ones most scared of your light." I didn't fully get it then, but it stuck. That night, I borrowed her old laptop. I started digging into my own memories, into digital breadcrumbs, into every lie Isla had planted. If I wanted to take back my life, I'd need more than just rage. I'd need receipts. Because I wasn't just fighting for truth anymore, I was fighting for my name. And thanks to Mrs. Kravitz, I finally had a place to start. The next morning, I woke up to Mrs. Kravitz's oatmeal pancakes and the kind of silence you only get in a home where peace actually lives. But inside me, it was a storm, because I couldn't stop thinking about Tyler. Tyler and I had been together 8 months. He wasn't just a boyfriend, he was my best friend, my safe space. The kind of guy who'd text me good luck before every exam and memorize my coffee order without asking. Losing him felt like losing oxygen. I opened my phone and scrolled through our last conversation. It ended cold. Him. I can't believe you lied to me. Me. Please, just let me explain. He never replied. Not once. That's when it hit me. What if Isla didn't stop at the pregnancy test? I dug into my backup texts and Google Photos. Deep in the archive, I found a screenshot I'd never seen before. Supposedly from me, sent to Tyler saying I was scared he'd be a bad dad and needed to keep the baby secret. But the font looked off. The timestamp was exactly 3:00 a.m., the same night I remember falling asleep at 1:30. Then came the Instagram DMs. She'd created a burner account, pretending to be me. Sent Tyler flirty messages from it. Planted just enough doubt to make him think I'd been playing him the whole time. My hands were shaking. She'd gone full catfish mode. Deep fake drama, all for a moment in the spotlight. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't high school pettiness anymore. This was psychological warfare. And what made it worse? Tyler believed her. Without asking. Without blinking. It crushed me. Because if the one person who claimed to love me couldn't even pause to hear my side, who else was I losing without even knowing? But in that pain, something sharp clicked into place. I needed to see him. Face to face. No more begging by text, no more crying to the void. If I was going to clear my name, it started with Tyler. Not for his forgiveness, hell no, but because I deserved to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved to know the truth too. I didn't text him, didn't call. I knew if I gave Tyler a chance to dodge the conversation, he would. So I did what any desperate but determined girl would do. I showed up at his job. He worked part-time at this vintage record store in downtown Dallas. Real hipster vibes. I walked in and the chime above the door felt louder than it should have. He looked up from the counter and for a second I saw it. The conflict in his eyes. Like he hadn't fully decided whether to be mad or just sad. Tyler, I said, barely above a whisper. He glanced around. I'm working. I won't take long. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. He didn't say no, just nodded toward the back alley behind the store. We walked out in silence, tension thick like Texas summer heat. I turned to face him. I didn't send those texts, I didn't cheat, and I didn't fake a pregnancy. He scoffed, arms crossed. Then who did? My sister, I said. I have proof. I pulled up the screenshots, showed him the metadata, showed him the burner account she used, the timestamps that didn't match my location data. Every digital breadcrumb that led to her. Slowly, his posture changed, from defensive to shaken. She really did all that? He asked, voice low. She framed me because she couldn't stand that. For once, someone chose me. He looked away, eyes glossy. I wanted to believe you, but it all lined up. That was the point. She made sure it did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The wind rustled some empty coffee cups by the dumpster. And then Tyler whispered, I'm sorry, but I wasn't there for an apology. I nodded, pocketed my phone. I don't need you to fix it. I just needed you to know the truth. As I turned to leave, he called out, So what are you gonna do now? I looked back, calm but firm. Expose her. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about finally ending the narrative she'd written for me and starting my own. Tyler texted me later that night. Just 2 words. I'm in. And honestly, that meant more than any apology ever could. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't fighting alone. We met up the next day at this little 24-hour diner off Highway 75, the kind where no one asks questions and the coffee is always terrible. But it was private, and right now, privacy was power. He pulled out his laptop and started listing everything Isla had done. The texts, the fake screenshots, the burner numbers. "We need more than proof," he said. We need a moment. Something undeniable." That's when I got the idea. Voice confession. "She always walks the dog at Lakeside Park on Wednesdays," I said. "If I can get her to talk, all we need is one slip-up." Tyler nodded. "You sure you can handle that?" I didn't hesitate. "She's been gaslighting me for months. I'm done playing the victim." We practiced what I'd say, how to bait her without pushing too hard. Tyler would be nearby, recording everything from a distance with a directional mic he borrowed from his friend in film school. It felt like something out of a heist movie, but this wasn't fiction. This was my life. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Isla's face, smirking, smug, like she always got away with it. But this time, she wouldn't. Because this time, I had the truth. And Tyler? He had my back. At 6 a.m., I slipped my phone in my hoodie pocket, turned on location sharing with Tyler, and walked out the front door. The air was cool, still soaked in dew, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. But I wasn't scared. I was focused. Because by the end of that day, everything would change. The sun was barely up when I got to Lakeside Park. Birds were chirping, squirrels darting between trees, and for a moment, it felt like a normal Wednesday. But nothing about today was normal. I spotted Ayla at the far end of the path, AirPods in, walking our family's golden retriever like nothing had happened, like she hadn't detonated my life from the inside. I walked straight toward her. She saw me and rolled her eyes. "Seriously? What now?" I forced a calm smile. "Just talk. 5 minutes." She scoffed. "What? You want to cry about Tyler again?" "Breathe. Keep it casual." "I'm not here to fight. I just want to understand. Why me, Ayla? Why go that far?" She paused. "Because I was sick of always being second place. Mom and Dad acted like you were the golden ticket to Harvard. I was just the backup plan." "And that made you fake a pregnancy test? Sabotage my relationship?" Ayla looked away. "You don't get it. Every time you got praised, I disappeared a little more. So yeah, I did what I had to. You were always so perfect. It was time you got knocked off your throne." Click. From behind the trees, Tyler captured it all. My heart was pounding. This was it, the confession, but I kept going. "You knew I'd be kicked out, that I had nowhere to go." She didn't flinch. "And yet, here you are, still standing. Guess you're tougher than I thought." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I am." And then I turned and walked away. No tears, no breakdowns. Because the best revenge is letting them hear their own guilt play back like a soundtrack. Ayla had no idea that her words were now evidence. Real, undeniable, time-stamped truth. As I walked toward Tyler, he held up his phone, screen lit with the waveform. "We got her," he said. I didn't even smile. I just whispered, "Now let's go home." Walking back into that house felt like stepping onto a battlefield. Same carpet, same family photos, but everything was different now. I wasn't the one on trial anymore. For the first time in weeks, I held the power. Not out of revenge, but because truth finally had a voice, and we recorded it. Mom was in the kitchen, chopping onions like nothing ever happened. Dad sat at the dining table, scrolling through headlines on his iPad. I stood in the doorway and said, "Can you both sit down for a second? I need to show you something." They exchanged that classic worried parent look. The one that says, "Here we go again." But they sat. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo, and hit play. Hila's voice spilled out, clear, cold, unapologetic. Every lie, every motive laid bare. The room went silent except for her confession. Mom's hand stopped midair. Dad set his iPad down slowly. When it ended, I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Mom's eyes welled up. I don't understand. Why would she... Dad clenched his jaw. She admitted it. On tape. And that's when Ayla walked in. She froze in the doorway, saw the phone on the table, heard the last line of her own voice echoing in the air. You could feel the air suck out of the room. "Ayla," Dad said, his voice like thunder barely contained. "Did you really think this was okay?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Mom stood, tears now streaming. "We kicked her out over a lie. Our own daughter. We believed you." Ayla's face cracked. I didn't mean for it to go that far. But it had. It went way too far. And now there were no more excuses left to hide behind. That night wasn't about punishment. It was about a family finally facing itself in the mirror, ugly truths and all. And I finally felt seen. Silence clung to the room like humidity after a Texas storm. Isla stood there, frozen like she could rewind the past 5 minutes and erase everything. But this wasn't a dream she could wake up from. This was reckoning. And it had been a long time coming. Dad spoke first. Not yelling, not cold, just tired. You knew what you were doing. You didn't just lie. You tried to ruin your sister's life. Isla's lips quivered. I was angry. I felt like you only cared about her grades, her achievements. I just wanted to matter. Mom sat down, face buried in her hands. You always mattered, Isla. But how could you think destroying your sister would fix anything? Isla looked at me, tears finally falling. I didn't think they'd believe me. I thought they'd ask questions. I didn't know they'd throw you out. I didn't mean to go that far. But you let them, I said, voice shaking. You watched me pack my bags, you watched me cry, and you said nothing. Dad slammed his hand on the table, startling everyone. This isn't just about now. This is years. Years of comparing them. Years of subtle favoritism. We created this mess too. Mom nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. We thought we were encouraging you both. We didn't see we were tearing you apart. For the first time, they saw the cracks. Not just in me or in Isla, but in themselves. The competition they'd bred. The silence they let grow. The love they made us feel like we had to earn. And Ela, she just stood there, raw and exposed. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not just for the lies. For everything. I didn't say I forgave her. Not yet. Some wounds take more than an apology. But in that moment, the truth had finally broken through the years of noise. And for once, maybe healing could begin. Not through blame, but by facing the damage together. We didn't jump straight into healing. There was no dramatic hug, no tearful reunion music. What came next was awkward silences, stiff car rides, and a lot of uncomfortable truths. Dad suggested family counseling. Mom jumped at the idea like it was a lifeline. Isla and I? We just stared at each other, unsure if sitting in a room together was the smartest or dumbest idea ever. Our first session was weird. This stranger, a therapist named Dr. Harris, sat between us like a referee. She didn't take sides. She didn't let us sugarcoat anything. Tell me, she said, when did your home become a competition instead of a sanctuary? That hit hard. Week by week, we unraveled years of patterns. The unspoken rules. The way Mom praised Isla's looks but expected me to be the smart one. How Dad thought silence was strength, when it was just emotional neglect in disguise. We talked about favoritism, not just in actions, but in tone, attention, expectations. It was like peeling back layers we didn't even know existed. Isla admitted that lying gave her a twisted sense of control, that hurting me felt like taking power back from a system that always made her feel second. It was hard to hear. But I had to own things too. Like how I used perfectionism as a weapon. How I distanced myself emotionally so I wouldn't get hurt, and ended up hurting her instead. There were breakthroughs. And breakdowns. One session, Mom cried harder than I'd ever seen, whispering, I thought I was pushing you both to be your best. I didn't realize I was pushing you apart. Healing wasn't linear. Some days it felt like progress. Other days like reopening old wounds. But little by little we learned to speak, to listen, to see each other not as rivals, but as wounded people raised in a flawed system. For the first time, we weren't just a family by name. We were trying to become one by choice. Forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a muscle. And rebuilding what Isla and I lost felt like trying to run a marathon after a decade of emotional limping. We didn't magically become best friends overnight. For weeks, we barely spoke outside therapy. At home, we moved like ghosts. Cordial, but distant. I'd pass her in the hallway and remember every cruel thing she said. But I'd also remember those nights as kids, whispering dreams through bunk bed slats. One evening, I found a note on my desk. Not a text. A handwritten letter. Isla's handwriting. Messy like always. It said, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm not going anywhere this time. I want to do better, even if you don't want me back. I stared at that note for a long time, and for the first time since everything exploded, I didn't feel rage. I felt grief. Grief for the relationship we should have had. Grief for the years we let resentment write our story. So I wrote back. Nothing dramatic, just, I'm not ready, but I'm listening. It was the first olive branch. Small, fragile, but it mattered. We started walking together on Sunday mornings. No deep convos at first. Just coffee runs, shared playlists, occasional inside jokes. And slowly a rhythm returned. We learned to ask real questions. Are you okay? Actually meant something again. Trust didn't come easy, but effort did. What surprised me most? She started standing up for me. When relatives tried to downplay what she'd done, you know how sisters are, Hila didn't let it slide. No, she said once, eyes sharp. What I did was wrong. Don't make excuses. Those moments built something back. Not what we used to have, but maybe something better. Something honest. Rebuilding our bond didn't erase the past. It didn't need to. What it did was give us a future. A shaky, unfinished, but hopeful one. And that, more than anything, felt like the real victory. College was supposed to be my escape plan. The reset button after everything fell apart. New city, new people, a dorm room I didn't have to share with ghosts. But the truth is, no matter how far you run, you still carry echoes. My first semester at UT Austin felt like walking on a tightrope with no net. Everyone around me was starting fresh, buzzing with firsts, first parties, first heartbreaks, first taste of freedom. But me? I was learning how to breathe again. One class at a time. How to trust a smile. How to believe that someone might actually want to know me. Not the drama, not the headlines. Just me. I kept to myself at first. Sat in the back of lectures, dodged small talk. I had a roommate named Jay who blasted pop punk at 8 a.m. and talked too fast. But something about his energy was grounding. One night he asked, "What's your story?" And I almost laughed. My story didn't feel like something you shared over microwaved ramen, but I told him the short version. He didn't flinch, just said, "Damn, that's heavy, you're still standing though." It hit me then. I was still standing. Every week I called my therapist back home. Every few weeks I texted Isla. Sometimes she replied, sometimes not. But we were trying, and that was enough. One rainy Friday, I saw a girl across the quad crying alone. Everyone walked past, but I couldn't. I sat down next to her and said nothing, just sat. After a while, she looked at me and whispered, "Thanks." And I realized, maybe that's what healing looks like. Not forgetting the pain, but using it to see others more clearly. College didn't fix me. It didn't erase what happened, but it gave me a space to become something beyond the girl who got betrayed. It gave me a chance to start again, this time on my own terms. If you had told me 2 years ago that I'd be here, alive, in college, breathing freely, I wouldn't have believed you. Not after what happened. Not after being blindsided by the one person I trusted most. But here's the thing about healing. It's not this neat upward climb. It's jagged. It doubles back on itself. One day you're laughing at a campus party, the next you're crying in a bathroom because someone wore your sister's perfume. There were nights I'd draft texts to Isla and delete them before sending. There were mornings I'd wake up angry, grieving the relationship we never really had. And sometimes I still do. But I've learned to stop expecting a perfect apology or closure wrapped in a bow. Some chapters don't end clean. They just fade. What I've realized is that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means reclaiming your power from it, turning wounds into wisdom, and choosing every day not to let bitterness anchor you down. Isla and I? We're still a work in progress. We talk occasionally, surface stuff, holiday texts. Hope your finals go okay. But that's more than we had before. And maybe that's all we'll ever have. And maybe that's okay. Because the biggest lesson? Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's deciding you won't let the pain rewrite your story. You will. So if you're out there listening and you've been betrayed, broken, or buried under someone else's lies, know this. You're allowed to rise. You're allowed to rewrite the ending. You're allowed to heal even if it takes time. Especially if it takes time. My story started with betrayal, yes, but it doesn't end there. It ends with me, whole, still healing, but no longer hiding. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.